We're running a bit later than planned here on BBC1, but coming up in 15 minutes, our all-action thriller Con Air. First, the news and sport with Peter Sissons and Rob Bonnet.
England rewrite the history books with a rampant 5-1 win over Germany. Owen scores 3 as they finally beat the Germans at home after 36 years. That stranded shipload of asylum seekers, New Zealand breaks the deadlock. And troops go in to help as Northumberland's foot and mouth nightmare goes on. Good evening. England's footballers have secured a historic win over Germany in Munich. Michael Owen scored a hat-trick as England won the World Cup qualifier 5-1, their first victory on German soil since 1965. The result gives a tremendous boost to England's hopes of automatic qualification for next year's World Cup finals.
After a fractious afternoon in Munich, police scrutiny for the 70,000 fans all the way to the turnstiles. Beyond them, though, a gripping contest and a nervy one too, with England's defence the first to show signs of the jitters which have affected both teams.
It's a goal for Germany, and it's Carsten Janker.
But this is an England team brimming with confidence. Time for Michael Owen, in the form of his life, to strike back. 1-1, but this game was not about to settle down, and on 45 minutes, a breathtaking save by David Seaman kept Burma's effort out. Just enough time then for a moment of imperious finishing from Steven Gerrard.
Gerrard. Oh, it's it, yes!
England ahead in Germany. Even the cool Swede was getting excited. Yet the second half just got better. The Germans gave Owen space once again, so he punished them once again. Wunderkind, Wundergoal. And 18 minutes later, with Germany visibly disintegrating, he completed his hat-trick and announced a rout.
Owen! Oh, this is getting better and better and better!
And then even better. In fact, the best move of the match saw goal number 5, as Heskey added to an inconceivable tally.
Yes, it is!
This has been an extraordinary evening, beyond even Sven-Göran Eriksson's wildest dreams. When he took over, England seemed to have little chance of qualifying automatically for the World Cup finals. Now it seems it's in their hands.
And for the 8,000 England fans who witnessed the victory for themselves, well, it rarely gets better than this. David Eads, BBC News, Munich.
Well, England fans are euphoric tonight. No one had predicted a victory on this scale. Our correspondent Daniela Relf joins us from the Olympic Stadium in Munich. Daniela, England fans can't have been much happier since 1966.
That's absolutely right. I think most of them, as you can probably see behind me, have made a pretty quick exit from here. The weather's pretty miserable, but I think we can safely say they will be celebrating all the way back into the city centre. What we saw tonight was one of the best England performances in recent years, as David said there in his report, beyond the wildest dreams of both fans and Sven-Göran Eriksson. It is a huge boost to England's campaign to qualify for the next World Cup finals. Helped along, of course, by those 3 Liverpool players. Michael Owen's hat-trick, Emil Heskey, and of course Steven Gerrard, who has become something of a talisman for England. Whenever Gerrard plays, England wins. It was an impressive performance against a side who England always seem to want to avoid. I don't think that will be the case for much longer.
And just briefly, Daniela, how worried are the police in Munich about keeping the lid on the celebrations tonight?
Well, it is a concern, obviously. There will be a huge security presence in the city centre as the fans were escorted from the stadium here back into town. The only way that the day has been tarnished, really, was by some skirmishes and some standoffs earlier this afternoon between England and German supporters. Riot police had to move in. Things were under control, but it did tarnish the day somewhat, and there will again be a huge police presence in the city this evening.
Daniela Relf, thank you. And we'll be bringing you more of the football later. 400 asylum seekers stranded on a Norwegian cargo ship off Australia's Christmas Island may soon reach dry land. The Australian government, which had rejected a UN call to let them land temporarily on Christmas Island itself, has struck a deal with New Zealand and the tiny Pacific island of Nauru, but that's 4,500 miles away.
Tonight, more supplies were being airlifted onto Christmas Island, headed for the boat people. There may be a diplomatic deal, but on the ground there are a lot of loose ends. The Australian government believes it's won a victory. Elsewhere, there's not much celebrating.
It is a compromise solution. It's not an ideal situation. And I feel for the refugees who are on this ship, in the heat, in containers.
The boat people still face a long time at sea. Some are headed for New Zealand, most for the tiny Pacific island of Nauru. It's not clear exactly which ships will take them. The Norwegians are adamant it won't be theirs.
The vessel is unseaworthy and is incapable of carrying the survivors anywhere, according to the certification on board the ship.
Nauru is as remote a spot as it's possible to find. It's also under threat of being washed away by rising sea levels. It's certainly not the boat people's preferred destination. Some may still be able to settle in Australia eventually if they can prove they're genuine refugees, but that's probably small comfort. Earlier in this standoff, the boat people had been threatening to throw themselves overboard unless they were allowed to land. They've been stuck on that ship now for nearly a week. They're likely to be feeling even more desperate. Michael Peshat, BBC News, Christmas Island.
An explosion in a taxi on the West Bank has left one woman dead and 4 people injured. It's not yet clear what caused the blast. In an earlier incident, a senior Palestinian intelligence official was killed by a car bomb near Gaza City. The head of Palestine's intelligence service accused the Israelis of carrying out the attack, but Israel denied any involvement. Police in Tokyo say they're not ruling out arson as the cause of a club fire which killed 44 people. Eyewitnesses say there was an explosion in the city centre building which housed a gambling club and a number of bars. Troops have been deployed in Northumberland in the fight to contain foot and mouth. There are now 16 cases in the latest hotspot, and the area covered by special movement restrictions has had to be extended.
The arrival of the army has added new impetus to the fight against foot and mouth. Only hours into their task, soldiers coordinated the setting up of more disinfection points on country roads. Others were dispatched to isolated farms to help in the efficient disposal of thousands of carcasses. It's a grim but necessary task, but their presence has been welcomed by farmers desperate to bring the outbreak under control.
We have this disease back in the county and we have to throw everything at it that we can. We have confidence that now in DEFRA, we didn't at the start, the disease caught everybody out.
Animals are now being rounded up for slaughter over a larger area, almost 500 square miles. It's an extension forced on government scientists because of the growing number of confirmed cases and those farmers deemed to have had dangerous contact with them. At Greyside Farm, one of the biggest, there's been a steady stream of lorries coming and going all day just to pick up carcasses. The last of the livestock at Greyside Farm are about to be slaughtered, discreetly in the trees behind me. The hillside, which only yesterday teemed with sheep and cattle, will then be deserted. But the job of the slaughtermen is not over. Tomorrow the army will take them further into the Northumberland Hills to cull more animals. Richard Wells, BBC News, Northumberland.
Young nurses, teachers and police officers could in future apply for interest-free housing loans. The government's expected to announce details of a scheme next week which would offer them loans of up to £10,000. But critics say it's not enough to help in some of the more expensive parts of the country. Race has dominated the Conservative Party leadership campaign today, with the 2 candidates both in Scotland. A prominent Kenneth Clarke supporter claimed the Tory party suffers from latent racism, a charge rejected by Ian Duncan Smith. Both candidates were addressing the party faithful at a one-day conference in Perth.
It was the first Chancellor of the Exchequer, I think, for 100 years to reduce the duty on whiskey.
Ken Clarke offers a cheery toast to his own prospects, but this is a grimly serious contest, intensified again today as a key Clarke supporter claimed that ethnic minorities faced latent racism inside the party.
We have people of talent and ability from ethnic minority communities who are not making the progress into positions of candidate selection and indeed members of parliament to the extent that ought to be the case in a Britain which is increasingly from diverse ethnic communities.
Addressing Scottish Tories, Ken Clarke amplified that message, warning that the party risked retreating into a right-wing clique.
The party is becoming so right-wing, we have to make sure that we are not excluding people, because we've got to be an inclusive party that takes in people of every ethnic origin.
And his rival Ian Duncan Smith said any party he led would be inclusive.
If it's under my leadership, certainly that's the party that I want, to reach out to all sorts of people, regardless of colour, creed or religion, all to be part of what essentially is a party for one nation.
So who's winning? Ian Duncan Smith's team certainly seems chirpier. Ken Clarke believes the higher the grassroots turnout, the better his chances. Among ordinary members here, the prevailing mood is apprehension over European policy divisions and the party's prospects. Ryan Taylor, BBC News, Perth.
The Queen Mother has missed today's Highland Games at Braemar. Doctors had warned her that she'd be too weak to make the steep climb to the Royal Pavilion. The royal party, which for the first time at the Games included Prince William, joined 20,000 spectators to watch traditional events, including tossing the caber, the tug of war and Highland dancing. Now, with news of the other World Cup qualifiers and the rest of today's sport, here's Rob Bonnet.
Thanks, Peter. Well, Scotland drew 0-0 with Croatia at Hampden Park this afternoon. They remain unbeaten in Group 6, but are still third in the table with a tough-looking fixture to come on Wednesday against group leaders Belgium.
Traditionally, when they opened Pandora's box, all sorts of extraordinary things came out. Glasgow style, they go in. The Tartan Army tuning up for a big match is a unique sight. But boundless hope counts for little on the pitch, and against an accomplished Croatia, the point was underlined. Twice Neil Sullivan was called to the rescue, first from Stanic, then as the visitors continued to dominate from Soldo. Only at the end of the half did Scotland threaten. Craig Burley's effort was their first on target. Most of the second half had all the allure of watching paint dry, until 5 minutes from time when substitute Billy Dodds rifled into the Croatian net. But it was disallowed, and replays showed there could be no arguing with the decision. Scotland finished the stronger, but couldn't really quibble with the 0-0 scoreline.
We can't afford to lose the Wednesday fixture. It's an uphill task, but it's the same for Belgium, the same for Croatia. We're all in it together, and we're all fighting for qualification.
The draw has done Scotland no favours at all. Japan and Korea are looking an awfully long way off. Kevin Geary, BBC News, Glasgow.
And viewers in Scotland can see extended highlights of that match in Sports Scene later tonight. Elsewhere, Wales drew 0-0 with Armenia at the Millennium Stadium. Captain Ryan Giggs had one of the game's best chances, but the team's failure to win means they now can't qualify. Northern Ireland had no chance of qualifying before this evening's game against Denmark in Copenhagen, but managed a creditable 1-1 draw. Philip Mulrine, their goal scorer, in the 73rd minute. But a second-half goal from Jason McAteer gave the Republic of Ireland a memorable 1-0 win over Holland in Dublin. The result guarantees Ireland at least second place in the qualifying table, but Holland now face elimination. On to cricket, and Somerset have beaten Leicestershire at Lord's to take the Cheltenham and Gloucester Trophy. Leicestershire's Scott Boswell was the last man out, the third of Stephen Jones' wickets, as Somerset completed a 41-run victory with more than 4 overs remaining. The win secured Somerset's first major trophy in 18 years. And Britain's #1 Tim Henman is out of the US Open. He's been beaten by the Belgian Xavier Malisse in 5 sets in a match that lasted almost 4 hours. Malisse is coached by Henman's former trainer, David Felgate. That's the sport. Peter.
Thank you, Rob. And the main news tonight, England have won a historic victory, 5-1, against Germany in tonight's World Cup qualifier. England fans are celebrating the win, the first time England have beaten the Germans on their own turf since 1965. That's the latest. There'll be news throughout the night over on BBC News 24. But from Rob and me, good night.
If you missed any of the big game or just want to see it all over again, Match of the Day has all the action at 3 o'clock.
Good evening to you. I have to admit I got a forecast wrong today, for a change, and that of course was the final score. It did rain as planned though. They've had 24 millimetres of rain in Munich. It didn't rain as heavily during the match, luckily, because at that particular time they were between 2 large and thick areas of cloud, Munich lying in there. Closer to home, the main theme of our weather is going to be the fact that it's going to be pretty windy in the next few days, with areas of low pressure like that one close by. The winds start in the west, but then they go round to the northwest, so we're going to have an autumnal feel, if nothing else. At the moment, we've got a fair amount of cloud across the country, some bursts of heavy rain in northern areas, one or two spits and spots further south as well. And that rain and that cloud will continue to spill in across the rest of the country during the night. Some lightish rain working its way down into northern parts of England and Wales, allowing somewhat clearer weather into Scotland, although still with a scattering of light showers, and a warmer night than it was last night in the south. We start off with some brightness in eastern Scotland. We may still have a little bit of brightness in the southeast of England. Now, the cloud across Scotland and Northern Ireland will tend to very gradually break up during the day, so more and more places having some sunshine, but there still will be a fair number of showers around, most of them, though, reasonably light. For England and Wales, the cloud moving down towards the southeastern corner as the day wears on, bringing with it some patchy light rain and drizzle, and allowing North Wales and northern parts of England to eventually brighten up. Temperatures about normal, and then on Monday and through into Tuesday, it's going to be cool and windy with a fair number of showers. A very good evening to you.
Faith and Brian, husband and wife, sharing one passionate dream.
The thing is, we have to make this work.
Of a simple life in the country.
Look at that, eh? Lovely cloud of the sky.
Pauline Quirk and Warren Clark in a fresh new drama for Sunday evenings. Down to Earth starts tomorrow at 8 on BBC1.
Ruthless. Given the opportunity, she'd absolutely shaft me.
Competitive.
He'll be the one to watch.
Ambitious.
I'd stab anyone in the back to get this money.
It's a dog-eat-dog world. All week is back in a brand new series. Next Saturday at 7, BBC1.
We're running 5 minutes later than planned now on BBC1. Explosive action with strong language. It's tough on the ground, but it's brutal in the air. Tonight's big movie. Nicolas Cage, John Malkovich and John Cusack star in Con Air.